We're talking here about a proposal to increase the corporate tax rate on companies with really extreme gaps between CEO and worker pay. So the wider these gaps, the higher their federal corporate tax rate. And I think this is a sensible solution to a problem that companies have just not been willing to deal with themselves.
Wait, back up. You think what is the sensible solution? Explain exactly what you think.
To increase the corporate tax rate on companies with extreme gaps. This would give an incentive to narrow these gaps, which a lot of business research has shown is bad for business. It contributes to lower employee morale. It sends us a message that the contributions of people throughout the company are infinitesimal compared to what they are at the CEO level. And I think we all know that's not true. It would be good for business to narrow these gaps. And if companies refuse to do it, they would have to pay more taxes, and that money could be used for social goods to help reduce inequality.
Aparna, what do you think? Would this be good for business?
So my problem with this proposal is simply that, it's not directly raising taxes on CEOs. What it's doing is that it's raising the corporate tax rate on the company. And as economists, I think what we've tried to show over the last several decades of research is that the corporate tax is actually borne by a combination of factors. And one of those factors is workers. So if you have high corporate taxes, companies have lower incentives to invest. They have less of, funds to invest in profitable projects, which leads to low capital formation, and that in turn affects worker productivity and worker wages. So my problem is if you're trying to address income inequality, a direct tax on CEOs might make a little bit more sense than a tax on the company as a whole, because the company is not the CEO. A company is shareholders, it's workers, it's consumers. And when companies are taxed, they try to pass on the tax to each of these factors in different ways. And several papers now show that a lot of that tax is now borne by workers. And so if you're trying to address income inequality, I think, trying to tax companies is exactly the wrong way to go. I also, one of the things you were discussing earlier is that it doesn't really tackle the issue of income inequality. It doesn't get at the question of why do low-wage workers have low wages? Is it skills? Is it the fact that they didn't get a good education, that they didn't get to, go to a good training program? I think this proposal doesn't really address that. It's a form of taxing and punishing the rich rather than really helping people at the bottom.
Sarah, I'd say that that's the strongest argument.
I just find it
bring wages up at the bottom.
I just find it amazing that we are still hearing these arguments about how lower corporate taxes will be good for workers. That was the argument leading into the Republican tax cuts. We've seen the evidence. What did they do with the corporate tax windfalls? They blew it on more than $1 trillion of stock buybacks to enrich their shareholders and their CEOs. Census just came out with new statistics showing that median household income has not changed. So I think we need to get beyond that argument. And the idea that, CEOs are these brilliant leaders and they deserve to make hundreds of times more than average workers, that's an argument I really thought we would have ended after the financial crisis. I was on Squawk Box in 2007, and I was ridiculed for criticizing the paychecks going to Wall Street CEOs, the same guys who then shortly thereafter ruined our economy. And so I had hoped that companies within the corporate world would have addressed this problem internally. They haven't. It's time for public policy to give the right incentive to companies that they need to narrow these obscene gaps.